One of the most disturbing things about narcissists is this. Many of them only realize your value after they completely lose access to you. And the longer you stay silent, the more their mind starts reacting in ways they never expected. Today, we are going to uncover what really happens inside a narcissist after long no contact. If this message is helping you understand narcissistic behavior on a deeper level, take a moment to like this video, subscribe, and share your experience in the comments. Your story may help someone else finally understand what they have been living through. Long no contact removes something narcissists quietly depend on more than most people realize: emotional control. This control is not always obvious. It is not always loud arguments, manipulation, or dramatic behavior. Sometimes it exists in smaller ways, like knowing they can message you anytime and receive a response. Knowing your emotions still revolve around them, or believing they still occupy space in your mind, no matter how distant they become. That emotional access gives them a sense of power and stability. They may ignore you, disrespect you, disappear for weeks, or act emotionally unavailable, yet still feel secure simply because they believe they can return whenever they want and still affect you emotionally. Long no contact interrupts that belief completely. When you stop responding, stop checking in, stop reacting, and emotionally detach, the narcissist loses the ability to predict you. They no longer know what you feel, whether you still care, or whether they still matter in your life. This uncertainty creates deep discomfort because narcissistic personalities rely heavily on control to protect their fragile ego. Your silence becomes direct evidence that they are no longer influencing your emotions the way they once did. That sudden loss of control can trigger several different reactions. Some become angry. Some suddenly become affectionate. And some try indirect ways to regain your attention. But underneath many of these reactions, the core issue remains the same. They are struggling with the realization that your emotional world may no longer revolve around them. Silence creates insecurity and confusion in narcissists because silence removes the exact information they normally use to feel emotionally powerful. Narcissistic personalities often depend on your reactions to measure their importance in your life. Whether your reaction is love, anger, sadness, frustration, or desperation, it still reassures them that they hold emotional influence over you. As long as they can affect your emotions, they feel connected to a sense of control. But long no contact removes those emotional signals completely. When you become silent, they are left without any answers. They do not know if you still miss them, if you are healing, if you found peace without them, or if someone else has replaced them emotionally. That uncertainty becomes psychologically uncomfortable because narcissists struggle deeply with situations they cannot manage or predict. They may begin overthinking your silence, even if they pretend not to care outwardly. The lack of access creates a gap their mind keeps trying to fill. This ongoing confusion can slowly turn into deep insecurity. A narcissist who once felt completely confident in their influence may suddenly question whether they ever truly mattered to you at all. Your silence directly challenges the image they created about themselves. Many narcissists genuinely believe people remain emotionally attached to them forever. So long no contact directly threatens that core belief. That is why some eventually return with sudden messages, emotional behavior, fake concern, or indirect attempts to get your attention again. Silence forces them to confront a reality they are simply not emotionally prepared for. You may no longer be emotionally available for them to control. Many narcissists react with fake indifference first because protecting their image is extremely important to them. When someone cuts off contact, especially after an emotionally intense relationship, the narcissist often feels the loss immediately. But instead of openly expressing hurt, confusion, or emotional vulnerability, they hide those feelings behind coldness, confidence, or complete emotional detachment. They want to appear completely unaffected because admitting emotional impact feels like absolute weakness to them. This is why some narcissists suddenly act happier than ever after no contact begins. They may post constantly on social media, show off new relationships, act overly confident, or behave as though your absence changed nothing at all. On the surface, it can look like they moved on instantly. But in many cases, this behavior is more about maintaining control over perception than genuine emotional peace. They want others, and sometimes even themselves, to believe they are completely unbothered. Fake indifference also becomes a strategic psychological tool. If they appear unaffected, they believe it may trigger you emotionally. They may expect you to feel rejected, jealous, insecure, or tempted to reach out and reconnect. Narcissists often understand emotional reactions very well, so appearing emotionally cold can become another calculated way of trying to regain power without directly asking for attention. But true indifference usually looks calm and stable. Fake indifference often feels exaggerated, performative, and emotionally loud underneath the surface. The more aggressively someone tries to prove they do not care, the more likely it is that your silence is affecting them far more than they want others to know. Many narcissists return through hoovering, guilt, or sudden affection because losing emotional access can feel deeply threatening to them. When long no contact continues, they often begin realizing that they can no longer control your emotions, predict your reactions, or rely on your availability. That loss of influence creates intense discomfort, especially if they believed you would always remain emotionally attached to them. Instead of accepting the separation peacefully, some narcissists try to pull you back into emotional contact again. This is where hoovering begins. Hoovering is when a narcissist attempts to re-enter your life after distance or silence, often using emotional tactics designed to reopen communication. Sometimes the approach looks soft and caring. They may suddenly apologize, express deep regret, say they miss you, or act emotionally vulnerable in ways they never did before. Other times, they use guilt by reminding you of shared memories, painful moments, or sacrifices they claim they made for you. They may contact you during emotional dates like birthdays or holidays because they know those moments can weaken emotional boundaries. Sudden affection is also very common. A narcissist who once acted distant or cold may suddenly become intensely loving, attentive, or emotionally expressive. This dramatic shift can confuse people because it feels like genuine change. But in many situations, the affection is connected more to regaining access than building a healthy relationship. Once emotional control returns, the old patterns often slowly return as well. The goal is frequently the same underneath all these behaviors: restoring emotional influence and confirming that they still have the ability to affect your emotions whenever they choose. Many narcissists stalk indirectly through social media or mutual people because even after no contact, they still want emotional awareness and psychological access to your life. Direct communication may stop, but their curiosity often does not. Narcissistic personalities struggle with losing control completely. So they may search for indirect ways to monitor your emotions, your healing, your relationships, or your personal growth without openly admitting they are still focused on you. Social media becomes one of the easiest tools for this behavior. Some narcissists repeatedly view your profiles, watch your stories, like old posts unexpectedly, or appear online around the exact same times you are active. Others may use fake accounts or anonymous profiles to quietly observe your life while pretending they have moved on. This behavior is often driven by a need to measure whether they still affect you emotionally. They may look for subtle signs of sadness, loneliness, anger, or attachment because it reassures them that they still occupy emotional space in your mind. Mutual friends or family members can also become indirect sources of information. A narcissist may casually ask about you, bring up your name unexpectedly, or try to gather details about your current life while pretending it means nothing. Sometimes they do this subtly so they can maintain an image of complete indifference while still staying emotionally connected behind the scenes. What makes this behavior so important to understand is that it often has far less to do with love and much more to do with unresolved control. They may not miss the relationship in a healthy, emotional way. Instead, they struggle deeply with the realization that your life can continue peacefully without their influence, attention, or emotional presence. Losing access to you hurts a narcissist's ego far more than the actual breakup ever could. Because for many narcissistic personalities, relationships are deeply tied to validation, control, and personal identity. The relationship is rarely experienced as a balanced emotional bond. Instead, it serves as a steady source of attention, admiration, reassurance, or emotional influence. As long as they maintain access to you, they feel psychologically secure, knowing that they still hold space in your emotional world. Even negative or unhealthy attention can satisfy that internal need because it confirms their continued importance to you. When no contact becomes long and consistent, that artificial sense of importance begins to break down. The narcissist is no longer receiving emotional reactions, regular updates about your life, or proof that you remain emotionally attached to them. This creates what psychologists describe as a major ego injury. The pain they feel comes less from losing genuine intimacy and far more from losing the feeling of power, relevance, and emotional influence over another person. That is precisely why some narcissists react so strongly, even after being the exact ones who acted distant, dismissive, or emotionally harmful during the relationship. They may suddenly become obsessed with reconnecting once they realize you are no longer available to them emotionally. Your silence forces them to confront something their ego actively resists accepting. They no longer possess the ability to affect your emotional state the way they once did. For narcissistic personalities, this realization can feel deeply unsettling because their self-worth is remarkably fragile beneath the confident exterior they display to the world. Losing emotional access removes one of the main mirrors they used to validate themselves. And sometimes the realization that you are truly moving forward becomes significantly more painful to their ego than the ending of the relationship itself ever was. Some narcissists grow visibly angry because they can no longer manipulate your reactions, and that sudden loss of emotional influence feels deeply frustrating to them. Narcissistic personalities rely heavily on your reactions to maintain a sense of control within relationships. Whether they provoke affection, guilt, fear, confusion, or complete emotional chaos, the reaction itself reassures them that they still hold power over the emotional atmosphere. As long as they can force you to respond, explain yourself, defend your actions, chase after them, or become emotionally overwhelmed, they feel psychologically connected to a position of control. Long no contact interrupts that predictable cycle completely. Your silence removes the emotional feedback loop they have grown accustomed to receiving. Suddenly, their messages go completely unanswered. Their deliberate attempts to provoke an emotional reaction no longer work. Their guilt tactics, dramatic outbursts, and attention-seeking behaviors fail to produce the expected effect. For many narcissists, this creates intense internal frustration because they are no longer controlling the emotional direction of the dynamic. That frustration can eventually transform into outright anger. Some may send hostile messages, spread malicious rumors, act passive-aggressively, or attempt to damage your reputation socially. Others may become cold, mocking, or deeply dismissive in a desperate attempt to provoke any reaction at all. This anger comes directly from wounded pride rather than genuine heartbreak. Your emotional detachment directly challenges their belief that they can always regain access to you whenever they choose. What makes this reaction so vital to understand is that your calmness feels emotionally unfamiliar to them. Narcissists are often much more comfortable with emotional intensity than they are with emotional distance and detachment. Loud arguments still keep the connection alive in their mind. Silence does not. And when they finally realize they can no longer manipulate your emotions the way they used to, that loss of control can trigger visible resentment and intense emotional anger. True no contact fundamentally changes your confidence level over time. Narcissists almost always notice that shift because genuine emotional detachment alters the entire energy a person projects. In the beginning, many people enter no contact while still struggling deeply on an emotional level. They may feel anxious, hurt, confused, or intensely attached. But as time passes and distance remains consistent, a deeper transformation begins to take place. The emotional dependency slowly weakens over time. The constant need for validation, logical explanations, or emotional closure starts fading away. And with that newly found emotional freedom comes a completely different kind of personal confidence. This confidence is not loud, dramatic, or arrogant. It shows up quietly as inner calmness, emotional stability, firm personal boundaries, and a significant decrease in emotional reactivity. You stop centering your daily life around the narcissist's shifting moods, unpredictable attention, or conditional approval. You begin rebuilding your true identity outside of the toxic dynamic that once consumed so much of your emotional energy. That internal shift becomes clearly noticeable even from a distance. Narcissists are exceptionally sensitive to changes in emotional availability. They can easily sense when someone no longer reacts the same way, no longer chases after them, and no longer seeks emotional reassurance from them. Your independence quietly communicates that their influence over your life is completely fading away. And for narcissistic personalities who once relied on emotional control, that realization feels deeply unsettling. This is precisely why some narcissists suddenly reappear the moment you genuinely begin moving forward with your life. They may become intensely curious, nostalgic, affectionate, or emotionally reactive after sensing your personal growth and detachment. But the most important thing to understand is this: your confidence did not come from making them jealous or proving your worth to them. It came from reconnecting with your true self after spending far too long emotionally trapped inside someone else's control. In the end, maintaining long no contact is not really about making a narcissist suffer or paying them back. It is about permanently breaking a cycle that kept your emotions tied to someone else's dynamic. That is why narcissists react so strongly to your silence. Your silence removes their access. It removes their certainty. It removes the predictable emotional reactions they once depended on to feel powerful, important, and emotionally secure. Some respond with fake indifference. Some return with sudden affection, guilt, or manipulation. Some become angry, obsessive, or quietly observe your life from a distance. But underneath almost every single one of these reactions lies the exact same uncomfortable truth. They are struggling deeply with the realization that they no longer control your emotional world. And while they are busy reacting to their loss of influence, something truly life-changing is happening inside you. You are healing. You are rebuilding your natural confidence. You are learning that peace feels completely different when your daily emotions are no longer controlled by someone else's unpredictable behavior. That is the true purpose and power of no contact. Not revenge, not validation, and not trying to make someone chase after you. Real no contact is about achieving complete emotional freedom. It is about finally becoming strong enough to stop explaining your worth to people who only valued access to you when it served their interests. And sometimes the absolute most powerful thing you can ever do is quietly move forward with your life without needing them to finally understand what they lost. Trust the process and trust yourself.